Hello and welcome back to another Nuke tutorial. My name is Sebastian, I'm with ActionVFX, and today we're going to look at our new atmospheric fog collection. So I'll be taking a stack of assets from a new pack and I'll be using that in a moving camera shot. So we'll be camera tracking that, creating a 3D scene out of that, and then compositing these assets into that scene. So as with my previous tutorials here, I'll be compositing 2D assets into a 3D scene. So what we'll be creating is a nice atmospheric shot using our new assets. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so I've just imported the footage here. We have a 4K plate, just playbacking Proxy mode here. And so we have a nice smooth movement along the water here. It's going to be nice and easy to track it. We have a nice depth in this shot, so there's some potential to emphasize that with our footage here. So the first thing we want is to track this shot so that we will have the camera, we will have a virtual camera representing the movement in this shot. So the first thing I will do is to track the camera. So, and for that we'll use the camera tracker. So usually when working with the camera tracker, you want to know the specifications of the camera used recording the footage. For this particular shot, I don't know the camera or the lens for that matter. But if you do know that, just pop it in here into either these presets here. You know, whether it's a DSLR or whatever, you can just use that, or you can just manually pop in the film back size. But I'll just leave it at default. This is a full frame size. I'll just leave that as it is. And for the camera motion, you know, even though this is just a very linear motion down along the water, it's pretty much no rotation in it. But for the sake of this, I'll just use the free camera. You know, you can just try out the different modes and see which works best. But I'll use the free camera. That works best for me, really. And in Nuke X, you're able to preview the features of what the camera tracker is using as points. So right now, the default is 150. I'm just going to pop that up to 300 just to get a little bit more detail in it. And when increasing the number of features, usually just decrease the feature separation just to get a more evenly track. And anything else looks pretty good. You know, just leaving most at default here. I don't need to mess with all this. So I'll just go ahead and track this and then come back here. Alright, so it's almost finished now. Depending on the amount of tracking points that you're using, I use 300. It's going to take a little bit. Mine took just 3 minutes, so now we can go ahead and solve it. This shouldn't take too long. And what it does now, it's sort of converting these tracking points into a camera. Well, not a camera yet. We have our point cloud here, and then we can create a camera. But first, I'm going to work with this error rate here. Right now we have an error rate of 2.82. And that's, I mean, for a 4K plate, that's not too bad, but we can work on it. So, and also for the sake of just learning how to work with, you know, getting the error rate down and to improving your solve, I can just go through it really. First up, we want to start off with the minimal length one. So just keep an eye on all of the tracks here. You know, most of them are green, which means that they're being taken into the calculations of the solve error here. So when you start to moving these around, if I pop this up, the length of each tracking point, then some of these points are going to go red, like, you know, around here. So I can maybe leave it at 16 or something, because we have a lot of points left. And then we can just move on to the max track error. And I'm just gonna crunch this down a little bit, and then you can see that you're sort of starting to lose a lot of points. Before losing too many, we're gonna leave it maybe around 5. That we still have a lot of green points that we can still maintain our solve. Because if you start removing too many, then you're going to lose the solve. It's not going to be able to create a camera out of it. So now it's just the error max and the max error. I'm crunching down, just chopping off these peaks here. And also, as you can see, that we're getting rid of some of the tracks here. So that should leave us with a better solve. And now we have a solve for 2.5 error, which is fine. It's just a tutorial, so you can just keep improving it. But for the sake of this, I'll just leave it at 2.5. And now I'll just go ahead and create a camera. That's all we need from it, really. So this camera here, it is animated now, and it's moving according to what Nuke thinks this camera is moving. So we have a virtual camera of the scene, and as you can see with the point cloud, we can sort of get how how the scene is. You have sort of the trees over here, and then you have some the distance over here, down the water here. So now we can now we can actually create a 3D scene out of this. So I'm just gonna create the basics that we need for a scene. Scanline render and a scene. Just gonna pop this in here. Right. So now we have a camera and a scene. And in the scene is where we're gonna pop all of our assets in. So let me just start bringing in our footage here. So just have some various assets from our new atmospheric fog pack. We have some displaced fog, a lingering fog here, and then we have some side fog here. This is more of a very big overall kind of smoke, and then we have some thinner layers here. And we're just gonna pop these around in this 3D space here. So first off, let's just put in this little fog layer here, and this is sort of going to be laying across the water here, like a layer of fog just hovering over the water. So I'm just going to pop this here. So just going to take this, and in order to, this is just a 2D footage, right? So we need to put that into 3D space. So I'm going to use a card for that. And the card is basically just a plane, and right now it's black around it. There's no alpha channel in it, so you can just quickly create an automated alpha channel based on the luminance. So this does a very quick and easy job for that. So right, so now we can just position this. So we want this to be sort of over the water here. First off, let me just make it so that we can actually see everything together. So I'm just gonna set this up so that we can go back to it and see how the stuff that we put into this 3D scene actually looks. So I'm gonna pop the scanline renders output here into the A channel, and then the original plate in the B channel. So now we can actually see whatever we put into this scene into the shot. But since the plate here, the original footage is 4K, we need to reformat it down because my project settings is HD 1080. So now, once we reformat it, you can see an accurate representation of the card that you put in here. So it's pretty big now. Let's just scale it down. Something like that. And keep in mind that the camera is moving here, so we don't want it to cut off the edges at one point, but this seems to be just fine. It's sort of staying within frame all the way. And now we can just move it down so it's sort of hovering over the water like that. And in order to see it a little bit better, I'm just gonna put in a color correct node here. It's gonna just get the contrast up for the smoke. That. I'm going to do the same with the background plate just to see it a little bit better. Just going to get the contrast. Just quickly color correct it like that. So now you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to pop this proxy quality up. So now you can see that we have the smoke sort of laying over the water here, and you know, you can add to the effect just by tilting it even slightly so that the foreground is sort of slightly in front of the camera. This might give us a very discrete effect. You can do it even more. Just make sure you're not stretching it. That should be fine. And as you can see, it's sort of sticking to the plate very nicely. That's because of the camera track that we did. And now you can see that it sort of really looks like it's sticking, like it's staying over the water nicely. This is a good foundation to start from. And from here on we can just add more layers. Let's say we want something over the water around here, maybe over this layer. So let's just try put this little guy in there. So I'm going to copy these two, that and this one, just view it from here, and I'll just zero out the rotations here and pull this back into the middle here and pull it up like so. Just place it nicely, and as you can see the edges is getting cut off here, so we need to just scale it up. And just move it. Again, make sure that it's not cutting off the edge at one point, because it's moving from the right to the left here. Just keeping it within frame. That. And let's just put this one. Rotate it slightly. Okay, you can see that this one was disconnected, so it's not showing, so now we're getting both. Alright, so we have two layers now. This one is maybe a little bit too strong, so in order to control the opacity, we can just use a simple merge node here and use the mix slider just to tone it down slightly, maybe halfway, something like that. Just make sure that it's in the A channel of the merge node. Alright, so now we can add a little bit more fog elements to this. So I'm just gonna copy these two here. So let's just take this little third card, zero it out in the middle here, scale it up. So just layering these fog assets nicely. That. So now we have even more fog in there, and we need to tone down the opacity for this one as well, because we don't want too much fog in there. We want there to be individual elements creating a depth effect, but we don't want each element to take too much. We don't want too much fog in here. So I'm just toning down nicely. And what you can do as well, I mean, maybe with this one, we can create a sort of a foreground fog. I'm just going to copy these again. Just do it all over again. That and there. Just going to move this to the foreground here, so we're actually making sense. It's going from the front to the back here. So this layer here, let me just view it from here, like that. So this layer, let's just put one right in front of the camera, because this will give us more depth. You know, we have a range going from the camera and then to the back. So we're putting this one right up in front of the camera, and it can be sort of a bottom layer. Oops, I did not mean to do that. This one. And I think maybe we can scale this down. Just adjust it like that. Okay. And this layer will tone down a lot more. So now we have, you know, a very weak layer in front of the camera, an overlay over the water itself and a medium one, and then further down we have a little bit bigger one. And let's just get an overview here, see what else we can put in. So let's put in some details maybe around here and maybe in the back here. And this side smoke here might be a little bit too hard. You can tone that down even more, because we can put more layers in there. We want a nice subtle fog layer in there. So I'm just gonna tone down this one too with another merge node. It's a little bit too strong, like that. It's better. Alright, so let's put some details in there. For that we'll use the same one we use in the foreground. So I'm going to use this one. Just going to copy these three again. There's a lot of copy paste here. And this one I'll put way back here, somewhere on here. And we want to scale this up because we want some of these details in here. Let's just see how it looks. Take up the opacity here. So we want these details right here, you know, like that maybe. So what we want to do is create a roto so that we're not getting these sharp edges here. Since we're not scaling it up to go outside a frame, we want to roto out so that we're sort of getting the middle part of it only. So to do that, I'll use a merge node, another merge node, and I use a constant, pop that into the B channel actually. So I'm just switching these around and just make sure that the constant is the same format, 4K format. And then I'll pop a roto in here and I'll just draw around the middle here. Like that. Just change the clip size to no clip. And then now we can feather it. Let's just feather it minus 500 maybe, like that. Now we're only getting the middle part, we're not getting that sharp edge. Just feather it even more, like that. So now, just see what we have. So now we have a nice card here. We can scale it down, it's a little bit too big even. It's too much, that maybe. So we have like a nice detailed fog on the edge of these trees here, sort of on right all over these rocks here maybe. So just put it there and let's take down the opacity because it's too strong and you can see the edge too much here, so let's bring down to half maybe. And what we can do now is just copy this and we can add another layer even further back of the same one, but this one will offset quite a bit, maybe 600 or something, that. So it's different, it's not identical. And let's just move it way back and to the side. We want it in this part right here, so it's sort of another sort of fog layer over these rocks, but further back. Like that. This will give us a nice depth. And you know, you can even create a little bit more of a difference between these. You can just flip it. That. Maybe rotate it slightly. So now we have, you know, details down here, and you can just tone this down. It's very, very subtle. Just look at how it's contrasted. That. Just gonna darken this me a little bit. So, and I also want this last side fog here. You know, we wanted sort of an overall fog over everything. So I'm just gonna, oops, I'm just gonna copy these two right here, and this one will go over everything pretty much. So I'll just put this back. Just put this in the middle somewhere. Maybe you want to cover the top frame, so this is a good one to use, just to make it so that it's not just in the middle. Everything is not in the middle and the bottom. We have some sort of faded smoke in the top here. So. Let's see, we have that nice fog. Covering up the top. And this one is also sticking nicely to the footage. And it's not crossing the frame. Alright, so let's just tone that down again with the merge node. It's not too strong. Subtle, nice and subtle. Okay, and I also think that we should add a little bit more on the water layer here. It's a little bit thin, especially around the ending here. So we might want to add another one of these so that it's actually covering up this part here. It's a little bit scarce over here, so I'll just take, let's see, which one is this? Maybe I'll do one of these thin ones, maybe this one. Another lingering fog here. I'm just gonna copy this boy, like that. I'm gonna put him to the end here. And this one is connected to the scene. And so we can move it up with this layer here. So just move it, and we can rotate this as well. And you know, we can make it fit. We can even scale it so that it's sort of looking a little bit thinner. Maybe let's just try it like that. And the idea of this layer is just to cover up some holes here. So like that, we're sort of just filling in here, and you want this to sort of lay upon the surface as well. So I'm going to try something like this. Maybe it's not too much, but something like that should be good. Maybe look down. Okay, let's try that and see how the camera. It's fine. Maybe it's a little bit too strong in this beginning. We can sort of have it fade. Okay, that's from another one. But it's, we don't need a duplicate. We don't need to overlay them both here. So I'm just gonna key it, you know, a little bit lower here, and we'll just go in and see when we need to tone it up a little bit. Just increasing it ever slightly. And here maybe we can increase it a little bit more. Like that. Maybe we'll just stop it at here. See how it looks. So, we're just covering up here. This is more just to add more of that foggy effect, so that it's not any holes, which is looking a little bit odd. So we're sort of just filling that in here. See how it looks in the end here. All right. And we can also add a little bit more in the middle here. It's a little bit scarce here too. So maybe we can take one of these little patches that we did and put that in the middle here. So I mean, this is all up to you how much you want to go into it and detail it, but I just feel like certain parts needs to be covered up a little bit. So just to sort of wrap this up and just covering up a few holes here and there. I'm just taking that bit and putting it over here, so it's more just covering the middle part. We also have this guy here covering up the whole frame, and this one is sort of just covering up part of the middle. It sort of also adds a lot to the final image here. So alright, so now we have covered up our frame, covered up some of our holes. We've sort of just added a full spectrum of fog in this shot. So just to go over quickly what I've done here. So we've taken our footage, we've tracked the camera, we've created a 3D scene of this shot, and we have a virtual representation of the camera's movement in this camera, in this digital camera here, and it is filming this little 3D scene that we have made here. And I've made these 2D assets, 2D fog assets into 3D with cards, created a very simple alpha channel, and I have these merge nodes here as sort of an opacity slider control thing for each of them, so that we can adjust how intense we want each layer to be. And then this is being rendered out into like a single pass of just fog and mist, and this is just being merged over our plate here. And then we have these color correct nodes just to, you know, increase contrast and adjust things here and there. So now we can just, you know, add any other kind of nodes that we need before rendering it out. So I'm just gonna pop in some grain here, because, you know, some grain will look great on top of this fog here. Just make sure you apply it, you toggle off this one so it's applying it to the whole image, and you see some nice little fog. Now you can just try these different presets. I like this one, and it's looking really nice. And also, just to add a touch to the camera movement, we can just add some camera shake in here. So I'm just gonna adjust it so it's the right kind of shake that we want. Just turn off that motion blur, make it very slow and very subtle, something like that. It's a little bit too quick even, something like that maybe. Very subtle. Okay, let's try that. I'm gonna put that in before the grain. Alright. Oops, we have a bug there. There we go. Alright, so we've created a very atmospherical shot here. You know, we've tracked the shot, we've added our fog into 3D space, and it's looking really nice. As usual, hopefully you learned something from this, and hopefully you'll be able to use this in your own projects in the future. If you did like the video, if you want more videos like these and also updates, and also keep up with new content from us at ActionVFX.com, hit the subscribe button. If not, no big deal. Anyways, see you later for the next tutorial. Bye bye.